How could I have known? That moment would change my life. Completely, it was just an ordinary day. Until I walked into that room when I noticed the door was slightly open. Something inside me shifted withy. And seconds I could have turned back, ignored it, but I didn't, because in that moment, when I realized what I was looking at, I knew nothing would ever be the same again. And yes, I was the one at fault here, because I was the one who started it, and the one who didn't stop it. Michael was at work. The house was quiet, but I heard faint noises coming from upstairs. Matteo was in his room. At first I didn't think much of it, just another moment of a young man lost in his own world, but maybe he'd like a coffee. A little conversation might be nice. As I walked up the stairs, I tried to figure out where the sounds were coming from. When I got closer to his room, I noticed the door was slightly ajar. I took a breath, about to call out to him, but then my eyes landed on Matteo. He was sitting on his bed, his laptop on his lap, the bright screen casting a glow on his face. His hands were moving, and at first I thought he was just watching something exciting, maybe an action movie, but as I took one more step, changing my angle, I felt my blood drain from my face. That was the moment I realized exactly what Matteo was doing. My eyes caught the reflection on the screen, and a cold wave washed over me. I hadn't expected this. I had wanted to see this. Matteo scrambled, trying to compose himself, frantically lowering the volume on his laptop, but it was too late. The moment had already happened. When our eyes met, his face turned brie. GHT read the shame in his eyes. Undeniable. I'm sorry, he stammered, looking away. I felt frozen in place. I started, but I had no idea what I was even trying to say. A strange warmth spread through me. I was embarrassed, yes, but my mind was also racing with thoughts I couldn't quite grasp. I quickly stepped out of the room, my heart pounding against my chest. I pressed my hands to my face, trying to steady my breath. What the hell was that? I whispered to myself. What had I just done? Why had I been so careless? Was I the only one at fault here? Stop it, Darlene, I told myself sternly, but the chaos inside me was triggered by more than just what I had seen. Matteo was 23. Now he wasn't a kid anymore, but I was. ALS. 47, a woman who had experienced her fair share of shame in life. I had never been in a situation like this before, but I knew exactly what shame felt like. I stood frozen in the hallway, my heart still acing. I ran my fingers through my hair, trying to pull myself together, when Matteo appeared at the doorway. He adjusted the collar of his shirt, cleared his throat, and kept his eyes averted. I'm sorry, I thought I had closed the door, he said, his voice unsure but sincere. I quickly shook my head, looking away. No, actually I should be the one apologizing. I should have knocked for coming in, I said hurriedly, not really knowing what else to say. Silence, but this wasn't just any silence. We had lived in the same house for years, but this was the first time we had ever looked at each other like this. The first time there was this key and of tension between us. I should head downstairs and start preparing something for dinner, I said quickly, turning toward the stairs. My voice was trembling, but I was trying to hold it together. Matteo didn't say anything. He just followed me with his eyes, as if he was trying to piece something together in his mind before the big things started happening between Matteo and me. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, turn on notifications, and listen to this story until the end. I promise you everything is going to get really exciting. Until that evening, we didn't say a word to each other. No texts, no eye contact, not even small talk, but that silence whispered that things would never be the same again. At dinner, we sat at the same table, but we couldn't look at each other. The only sound was the clinking of silverware against our plates. We needed to talk to ease the tension. We both knew it, but how that night passed, then the next day, and the one after that, everything seemed normal, but nothing really was. Our silence only made the invisible tension between us grow even stronger. Then one afternoon, Matteo sat down next to me. I could see the hesitation in his eyes, but it was clear. He wanted to fix things. Arlene about the other day, I'm really embarrassed. I'm sorry, I didn't want things to be this way. Please, I don't want this to ruin things between us. He said, his voice nervous but sincere. I took a deep breath. No matter how strange and unexpected this was, I needed to put him at ease. I smiled, shrugged slightly, and said, "Oh, Mateo, believe me, I've had my fair share of embarrassing moments over the years." Then I shared a few of those moments with him. His smile relaxed a little, and he nodded, his embarrassment fading slightly. At that moment, it seemed like the tension between us had lifted, but deep down, I knew nothing had truly passed, even though very things seemed to be getting better. This conversation had completely erased the boundaries between us, and I could feel that things were about to go much, much further. Mateo let out a small chuckle, low ring his gaze to the table. "I guess we even now," he said quietly. I frowned slightly and turned to him. "What do you mean?" I asked, curiosity creeping into my voice. For a second, his expression shifted, like he had just realized he had said something he couldn't take back. He rubbed the back of his neck, hesitating for a moment. But he had already started, and now he had no choice but to continue. He took a deep breath, then looked away as he muttered, "I've seen you the same way, you just didn't know about it." It felt like electricity had shot through my body. I froze for a moment, what I whispered as the weight of his words pressed down on me. Mateo's face was flushed, but he kept going. "I never told you because I was too embarrassed, but I never forgot about it. Actually, it was my little secret, something I couldn't get out of my head." My heart was pounding wildly. A strange warmth spread through me, that foreign sensation that to me something had changed. Mateo's words weren't just a confession, they shattered every last boundary between us. I looked at him, and he was looking at me too. By now we both knew this wasn't just an ordinary conversation. The air in the room had thickened. Everything had shifted from that day on. Everything changed. There had always been a distance between us before, that invisible boundary that kept you as apart, but now it felt like that boundary had completely vanished. Without even realizing it, I had started spending so much more time with Mateo. Small moments, seemingly insignificant conversations, but in reality, each one only fueled the tension between us. Now we even sat and watched movies together. Before we would always keep our distance, but now there was an unspoken pull between us, something we both felt but never acknowledged. Sometimes when Mateo rested his arm on the couch, when my hand brushed against his leg, or when our laughter intertwined, I felt something strange inside me, but I tried no to think about it. One night I couldn't sleep. I kept tossing and turning in bed, but the restlessness inside me wouldn't let me be. There was only one thing on my mind. This couldn't go on. I needed to a boundary. If he had feelings for me, I had to say it outright and put a stop to it. With that thought, I got out of bed. My heart was pounding like crazy, but my feet had already taken me to Mateo's. His door was slightly open, and the dim light inside faintly illuminated the room. As I stepped inside, I saw him. He was sleeping, but at that moment my eyes weren't on him. They were fixed on something else, something big. My breath caught, and my body froze for a moment. Seeing him like that sent a storm raging inside me. I shouldn't have seen it. I should have turned around immediately, but I didn't. I stood there for a few seconds, trying to understand what I was feeling. Then I pulled back. There was something inside me that I couldn't suppress, but I had to ignore it. I returned to my room and laid down. But nothing was the same anymore that night. I had no idea how much more complicated things would become no matter what I did. I couldn't resist this growing closeness with Mateo. With each passing day, boundaries blurred even more, and the pull between us only got stronger. I didn't even realize when things had gone this far, but the one thing I knew was that turning back was becoming impossible. And then Mateo came home, like that he was drunk. The noise from The door, the things he knocked over, the sounds could have woken Michael, but I knew how hard it was for Michael to wake up, so I quickly stepped out. I left my room and went to Mateo. I didn't even have time to properly fix my clothes before I was standing right next to him. Mateo's eyes were slightly unfocused, and a faint smile played on his lips. "Darlene, are you real?" he mumbled, his words slurred from the alcohol but still sincere. I took a deep breath and grabbed his arm. "Mateo, come on, you can't go upstairs like this, we have to be quiet." But Mateo's eyes were locked onto my face. He smiled softly, his gaze slowly traveling over me. "You know you're really beautiful. Have you always been this way, or did I just never notice?" I froze for a second, but then quickly pulled myself together. "Mateo, that's enough. Come to the kitchen, I'll make you some coffee." I slowly led him to the kitchen. I was trying to sober him up a little bit because of Mateo's gaze and the things he was saying. Something inside me was also unraveling. Mateo sat down on the chair while I prepared the coffee, but suddenly the cup slipped from his hands and spilled onto the counter. Mateo, you need to be more careful," I whispered quickly, trying to clean up the mess, but Mateo just smiled softly. "Were you always this sweet?" I hurriedly cleaned up the kitchen. We couldn't stay here any longer. Michael was sleeping upstairs, but with Mateo in this state, he couldn't afford to make any more noise. "All right, we're going upstairs, but be quiet," I warned, slipping my arm around his and guiding him toward the stairs. When we got to his room, his movements were even more unsteady. He needed to change his clothes, but he was too out of it to do it on his own. At first I wanted to turn around, but when I saw him struggling to take off his shirt, I instinctively helped him as my fingers reached for the buttons of his shirt. Mateo's breathing slowed at that moment. The tension between us filled the air. The silence only made it more intense. I knew exactly what I was doing, yet at the same time I had no idea Mateo was looking at me differently, and this was one of the moments we could never take back. Mateo hesitated. While changing his clothes, he let his hands fall to his sides and locked eyes with me. That was when I realized my breathing had quickened. It was so quiet the air in the room felt heavy, making it difficult to even breathe. "I'm not playing this game anymore, Darlene," he said, his voice soft at first, but filled with certainty. I stared at him without blinking. My heart was pounding, but what was Mateo trying to say? "Are you?" he added, his voice deepening slightly. We both caught each other once, and that's it. "You don't think about it at all. I know it crosses your mind before you sleep." A shiver ran through me, making me take a small step back, but my feet felt glued to the floor. "Mateo, this isn't right," I said, but my voice trembled. Mateo smiled slightly, but it wasn't an innocent smile. We passed the point of deciding what's I'd a long time ago. "Darlene, stop lying to yourself." Then he took a step forward, and another. He was so close now that I could feel his breath against my skin. He reached up, his fingers trailing gently over my cheek. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't, because deep down I knew he was right. And then Mateo's lips met mine. All the silence, all the tension, the answer to everything was hidden in that moment. The thoughts echoing in my mind suddenly quieted, all my doubts fading into whispers because I hadn't resisted. The truth was I had never wanted to. My hands were trembling, but I didn't pull away. When I saw the determination in Mateo's eyes, I knew there was nothing left to hide. I swallowed, took a deep breath, and slowly slid the straps of my clothing off my shoulders. "You're right, Mateo," I whispered, my voice barely above a breath. "Let's not play this game any longer." What did he know? I think he guessed, and he understood me. I couldn't help myself, and I closed my eyes. I was holding the sheets tightly with my hands, and my body trembled and spasmed. I covered my mouth with my hands so I wouldn't make a sound. Mateo was so drunk that he didn't care about anything. In fact, even this was affecting me a lot. The excitement of the event combined with everything else, and the irresistible feeling of something big. Mateo was drunk, tired, and out of breath. I said, Elliot, you're red and we have to. Hurry. Mateo said, okay. But he kept going the same way more and more. I had another contraction, and I didn't care about anything anymore. I wasn't even myself anymore. I closed my eyes and said, whatever you want, Mateo, whatever you want. Mateo must have liked it because he let himself go. He let go completely. And that was too much. The heat inside me was too much. I quickly laid Mateo down in his bed and covered him up. Then I locked high as bedroom door. I wanted to take a quiet shower and complete. I had no idea what was going to happen next. What had just happened, I thought about it in the shower, but at the same time I felt nervous. And yet by the time I stepped out, my mind felt clearer. Weirdly enough, I actually felt calm. I couldn't even be mad at myself because my body felt just as relaxed as my mind. I got dressed in silence, walked to my bed, and went to sleep as if nothing had happened. But the truth is, this was just a moment of excitement, a rush of reckless desire. But nothing was ever that simple, and this wasn't going to stay simple either. It didn't stop here. It couldn't. Bigger things happened, more intense things, and in the end, Michael was going to find out everything. We sincerely thank you for joining us for today's special story. If you enjoyed it, we kindly encourage you to subscribe to our channel, give this video a thumbs up, and share your reflections in the comments below. Your continued support inspires us to bring you more meaningful and engaging stories every single day. And click on the video above to see more inspiring stories, my dear.